Right now, we are in the middle of COVID. I am fascinated by people who, during crisis, think about how they can solve problems. So I could not think of a better person to have this conversation with than Dr. Matthew Wettergreen, who's an associate professor at Rice University in bioengineering. And recently, I came across my Facebook feed and I saw that him and his students were developing a low-cost ventilator. And I was like, pow, I need to have this conversation. So with that, I'm so excited. Welcome, Matthew. How are you?
Hi, Maaria. I'm so glad that we get to talk. And I can't wait to share some of the stuff that we've been doing during this COVID crisis, but also just talk about sort of innovation in general.
So awesome. So let's dig right into it, right? So let's first talk about how you define innovation.
Mm-hmm. So I think innovation at its root is what you went back to, which is problem solving, but it's problem solving with incredible constraints. So maybe it's problem solving, but you're only allowed to use a small set of tools. Maybe it's problem solving, but you are not allowed to use battery power. You can only use solar power. Innovation is meeting challenges that other people might think there's a roadblock or I can't overcome this. And innovation doesn't have to be device design. Innovation can be meeting personal challenges. Innovation can be breaking patterns or habits that might actually lead to negative outcomes. Innovation can be choosing to go left when you might normally go right. Right? It's opening itself. Innovation is a set of techniques that you use, but at its core, it's really opening yourself up to possibility and saying, what if, or why not, or yes and, which is the core of improvisation.
So let me ask you, when you work with your students, do you feel like they, because they're engineering students, come with that mindset of creating something new or thinking of a different way to think about something, or do you instill that in your students?
Yeah, so I think what you're asking is creativity something that can be learned, or is it innate? And what I'll say is that I think creativity can be squashed. Mm-hmm. I think it can be blossomed or encouraged, but our students come to their education with a deep desire to change the world, and not necessarily to do that through one specific way, but they are seeking little areas where they can have a greater impact on a community, on a hospital ward, on a particular country.
So let's now talk about the ventilator.
Sure.
Right? So if you can walk me through, as briefly as possible, walk me through how you thought of it, how your team thought of it, what helped you go in that direction, and then steps after that and where you're at right now.
Yeah, so we developed something called the Apollo BVM, and BVM stands for bag valve mask. So this COVID crisis has created a situation where patients are experiencing respiratory distress, and the patients who are the most critical need a ventilator. So ventilators are a technology that's available in hospitals, I'll say in short supply. They're very complex. They have a number of fine-tuned controls in order to help somebody breathe or to provide breath for them. They're very expensive, and they must be operated by a pulmonary technician or a pulmonologist. Now, again, they're in short supply. So bag valve masks, though, are these masks that you can manually compress to provide ventilation. And these are in wide supply, in the millions of numbers worldwide.
Right, I've seen them. I think we've all seen them. Yeah.
Sure. We sought to create a solution that would be a bridge ventilator for people who are not the most critical, but do need respiratory support. And when we approached this problem, we wanted to be, number one, open source, so that these plans could be shared worldwide. Number two, we challenged ourselves to innovate by using a limited set of materials. So we started by taking apart a 3D printer and only using the supplies that were either in that 3D printer or would be widely available. Because our goal was not just to develop a technology that would, quote, work, but also to develop a technology that others could replicate.
For those people that are engineers and are, thinking of how to build things and solve problems, I think what you're making clear, Matthew, is that innovation can become a skill set that you can hone on, right? It's a skill set that you can build and improve. And,
Right.
and it can be open to anybody, and it looks different for everybody.
Yeah. So for engineers specifically, and this is broadly applicable, in 2000, the National Academy of Engineering commissioned a group of experts to evaluate what types of skills student engineers would need to solve this century's problems. And so the product of this was a report called the Engineer of 2020. And so graduates this year are the Engineer of 2020. And what's really fascinating about the skills that they have now versus the skills that they might have when we went to college together or when our parents were in college is that engineers need to actually have communication skills. Right? The classical view of the engineer who is nebbish, doesn't talk to anyone, and goes into engineering because they don't want to talk to anyone, that's over.
Yeah.
The engineer of 2020 is one who can communicate, who has numeracy skills, of course. They have analytical thinking. They have deep knowledge of engineering systems, but this is the kicker: commitment to lifelong learning. That's a skill that the National Academy of Engineers thought was really important to have. And that's broadly applicable. So
for sure,
it's about a growth mindset, right? So if you have a growth mindset, you automatically are adaptable. And so if things don't go your way, in which we're currently living in a time when nothing is going our way, if you're adaptable and you have a growth mindset, you can basically find ways to be creative and innovate to get through it.
So I'm going to throw another term at you too, because you talked about this is adaptable to all, like a larger problem skill set. So we have innovation, we have creativity, and we're talking about engineers, and we're talking about how that skill set applies to everybody. Can we talk about the word smart? Because in times of crisis and in times of phenomenons, sometimes people sit back and say, I'm going to let the smart people handle this. I'm going to let the smart people figure out how we get out of this. And I wonder if that has holding back a lot of people who are probably innovators and don't even know it because they've been told they're not smart, or they're in a category that's not identified as smart.
Can I reframe that? I want instead of binning people between like those who are smart and those who are not smart, I want to talk about courage.
Sure. Wow.
Instead of letting the smart people do it, I think that what a better way to think about it is I have the courage to step up and do something difficult, something challenging, something that's going to stretch me, something that I might fail at. Right? I mean, there's so much failure happening right now. There's so much failure that is measurable. There's so much failure in our own lives, right? And that's why we're feeling so stressed out, is that we're trying to do things that came easy to us before, and we're not doing it well. And that's okay.
Mm-hmm. That's okay.
One of the things that we teach our students is that it's okay to fail. And the thing is that students come into college thinking that it's not okay to fail, right? And that everything needs to be perfect. We actually learn more from failure than you do from success. Success can be luck. Success can be an accumulation of factors that you don't know. But when you fail, you know exactly why you failed. And in fact, you could retrace those steps and you could fail exactly the same way again.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Let me ask you this. I remember also reading on my Facebook feed about you being very active in Houston when the hurricane hit.
Yeah.
And it brings me back to the idea of innovation and what the intent always is, what drives creativity, what drives problem solving. How
Right.
is your work connected to service? And if you could speak a little bit about what you learned with your experiences in Houston and what you're seeing now with people.
Yeah. So several years ago, Hurricane Harvey hit Houston, and the nation saw the footage of flooded streets, of houses being torn apart before mold could take hold, and it was emotionally very, very difficult. Um, and there were many people who just did not have food. Um, Myself and friends congregated around a professional kitchen, and we started a website called I Have Food, I Need Food, which was basically people who had surplus of food, like farms, butchers, and couldn't use it, and people who needed food, like communities who were basically whose supply chain was cut off. And we matched those groups of people, and in about 2 weeks, we served about 250,000 meals.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And people, uh, it was, there are many things I'm proud of in my life. I'm proud of being a good father. I'm proud of being a good husband. I'm proud of being a good friend. I think that I'm one of the things that I'm most proud of is the work that we did during Hurricane Harvey. And that's because I firmly believe that if you have a surplus, you should share it. And that if you have a way that you can help others from a point of privilege, that is where it really matters that you commit to service.
I love
And if you
that.
don't do it then, it will never, if you don't do it then, it doesn't matter when you do it other times.
I love that. And I love seizing the
Yeah.
moment to take on that opportunity to step up and contribute. You know, there's a lot of faiths have different terms for it. I know the Islamic faith has the term zakat, like Muslims are supposed to pay a certain percentage of their salary every year to the poor. And we have this word called barakah, which means the more you give, the more God is going to bless you with. You know, it's kind of like this selfish cycle that turns out to help everybody.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you speak of. And I think that's probably fundamental to so many faiths and so many communities.
Sure.
I want to ask you, since you had this advantage of traveling to different countries, I would always like to provide salutations in different languages
Sure.
for people to welcome them, because I think it's very important for people who have traveled to share the power and the beauty of diversity and how it affects who you are, and it creates your innovation, creates your awareness and curiosity of the world. So
Yeah.
I wanna make sure that I have a few words correct. Can you share with me how you say hello in, let's say if you were in Malawi
Uh-huh.
or
Yeah.
Tanzania? You can give me whichever one you'd like.
Yes. So we have some friends in Malawi at the Blantyre Polytechnic, and when we see them, we greet them with Mula Bwanji. So Mula Bwanji, and a greeting in Malawi is very warm, just like the people of Malawi themselves. It involves a firm handshake and eye contact, and it involves a not short conversation about how your morning is going and how you are as a person. Greetings are everything in Malawi, and they matter. They're done with sincerity, and I love seeing our friends and greeting them when we're there in Malawi.
That's awesome. That's awesome. No, I echo that. Greetings are so, so important. So I'm going to include that in my next list of salutations. I keep learning more and more, and then I want to include it. I could speak to you for a long time, but we want to wrap this up. I know you are very, very busy innovating, but I want to ask you one question. You know, with your activism in Houston during the hurricane and helping people out, and then now you see people during COVID and so many people are losing family members, and there's obstacles also. And then also in just creating and designing products and really seeing failure one thing after another. I would love to know what you use and what you tell yourself, or what your perspective is that blesses us with your innovation and helps you to keep moving forward.
That's a great question. So the way that I move forward on a daily basis is to envision what I want to see and then take as many small steps as I possibly can in that direction. And for me, moving forward is about gaining momentum. And sometimes I might tease myself with a candy bar, or sometimes I might go on a run to clear my head. But it's really about being creative in order to move forward in whatever that looks like. And I firmly believe that that it's not about attacking the to-do list. It's about managing your stress level. And if you can do, the to-do list gets done on its own.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you, Matt. Thank you so much for sharing some time with me. Thank you for talking about innovation, creativity, and reminding people that anyone can be an innovator. And thank you for inspiring your students. And most of all, thank you for one of the things you're very proud of and which you should be, which is being a very, very good friend. So I appreciate you, and your students are really lucky. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was great to talk to you.
I think I really want to take away this message of our conversation of the word courageous, that in times of crisis, the people that step up don't have to be the smartest or the most creative, but they just have to have courage, because we all have a skill set that we can use to make someone else's life better. And the fact that he tied it to service, that Matthew talked about his work in Hurricane Katrina and how this is driven by service. What really stands out to me is that whether it be a ventilator or whether you be an engineer or not, what drives innovation is your commitment to helping others and your ability to step up. And I think those two skill sets, all of us can have, if we choose to. So I hope that we all do. I know I definitely will try to. So again, as always, I bid you peace.